amazing.
Alright, hey, welcome back, guys, to the Laser Boy podcast. A24 guys, the Beef podcast. We are in episode 7, here to talk about episode 7 of Beef, titled I Am a Cage. I am your host, Joseph Ngo, the Laser Boy, here with my co-host, Edwin Lee. How's it going, Edwin?
Hey, Joseph.
Nice to be back and talk to you about episode 7. So this episode, again, we're just going to be recapping the episode. Before that, we're going to have like a news segment because there's some news that came out. And then at the end, we're going to give our kind of recap, kind of overall thoughts on the episode and our Yelp rating, which is the structure that we've been accustomed to doing. Alright, so with that, before that, let me plug the website, thelaserboy.wordpress.com, and type in the Laserboy, that's Laserboy with a Z, into the YouTube search engine, and you should find all of our past episodes there. So, as of July 12th, 2023, in the midst of a writers and actors strike, for some reason they announced the nominations for the Emmys. And that is important because Beef, one of the first Asian American accolades in TV history, garnered nominations in Outstanding or Anthology Series. Steven Yeun, as well as Ali Wong, got a nom for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited or Anthology Series or Movie. Joseph Lee and Young Mazzino, who play George Nakai and Paul. What was the last name again?
Paul.
The character's last name.
Cho.
Cho.
Oh, Cho Brothers.
How did we forget that?
Yeah.
We call ourselves co-hosts of a Beef podcast. Joseph Lee and Young Mazzino got noms for supporting actors, as well as Maria Bello, which I don't know why she's in it for like 2 episodes.
Mm.
Just, I guess, what do they say when the token, like a token Asian,
Uh-huh.
so now it's a token white person.
Could be.
So yeah, it's the roles have reversed, right? Lee Seung-jin got a nom for Outstanding Directing, as well as for Writing. So all the major categories they got noms for. What are your thoughts on that, Edwin?
Yeah, it was good to see. Good to see good performances and a good show get recognized. I don't really follow all the awards too closely, but good for them.
Yeah. To be clear, Lee Seung-jin got it for Figures of Light. I believe that is the finale. He directed that. Jake Schreier got it for The Great Fabricator, which this doesn't sound familiar. I believe it's the episode 9. Oh, nice. Yeah, one of my favorite episodes. And for writing, Lee Seung-jin got it for The Birds Don't Sing, They Screech in Pain, which is the first episode, the pilot. So, nice. All of those are strong episodes. Very happy to see them get noms. But we'll see if the Emmys actually take place this year because of, the SAG and the WAG. Is it the WAG? Writers Guild? WGA.
Writers Guild of America.
Yeah, and then the SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. Going on strike in, solidarity with each other. Basically, if you've been living under a rock for the past year or how many months it's been going on, the strike is mainly due to the opposition writers and actors. Directors apparently, made a deal with it, with the studios a long time ago, so they're not under strike. But in spirit, I believe a lot of them are, anyway. But they're in opposition to the studios using AI technology, right, to use either the actor's likeness or to write scripts on their own, so they wouldn't require the use of a writer.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. And I think just compensation,
True. Yeah.
fair
Yeah.
compensation, much like musicians getting a paltry amount per stream, I don't think the economic ramifications of what streaming's become was considered in the compensation of writers, and yeah, that'll all need to be addressed. Also, I think from what I have heard, the streaming companies have been very protective about data relating to the popularity of shows, and so box office, you can just use box office earnings to
Yep.
to show how successful a movie was, or conventional TV ratings. But
Right.
the streaming services, they're not letting that be known, and so
Right, yeah.
the screenwriters can't use that as leverage to
Sure.
say, "Hey, we've written a hit show." Well, they don't have access to the numbers
Yeah.
to give them that leverage.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's a huge issue there because yeah, like you said, it's a barometer for the success and the commodity of their work, right, and the value of their work, right. And it's if I get it, the companies, the studios own that, and it's their private equity or whatever. I don't think I'm using that term correctly, but yeah, they do need to upgrade that those contracts and those issues, and it's really sad to see that they're not very even close, to a handshake, to an agreement. So it seems like this is going to go on for a while. I don't want to get into it too much because it's, frankly, kind of boring.
Well, that
But-
could be its own podcast.
Yeah, sure. But and I'm not really educated enough, business wise. I'm struggling to find words as we speak right now. So to even to speak too deeply about it, all we know for right now is it's going to put a dampering in the content that's being produced, and that's going to be a huge shame. And already, what do you call it, like late night talk shows already stopped airing new episodes. All the stuff that we're watching right now is just like on the back burner that's been, already filmed and already in post production. So expect, like, I don't know, maybe the next year, maybe in the latter part of this year, there's gonna be a lack of a lot of content. You know what I mean? So that's gonna be a huge shame. We hope that this gets resolved soon. But in the meantime, let's we gotta win for our beef actors and our beef writers and directors and creators there. So let's celebrate that for now. Who knows if they'll actually go through with the Emmys? Hopefully, it just doesn't get canceled outright. If anything, I hope that they would just do it like, just no fanfare. No service, no program. Just do it like an online streaming thing, and give them their awards. Still, they probably won't attend, for solidarity and those reasons. But I'd still like to see them just get credited for it, because in the future, it'd be nice to just see Beef, Emmy award-winning show Beef, and Lee Seung Jin, and Emmy award-winning Steven Yeun, Emmy award-winning Ellie Wong, what have you. That'd be really nice to see. So, anything else you want to add to this issue? Or?
No, yeah, like you said, hopefully the writers and the writers can get a fair deal.
Yeah. We will see. Let's keep our fingers crossed. But for now, let's. I know, and then we're like, podcasters won't have anything to talk about either, and there's nothing to recap, right? So everything is just going to be stalled to a halt. It's just going to be terrible. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, which is fairly soon. It looks like. But until then, we're here to talk about episode 7, titled I Am a Cage. Let me look that up real quick because I don't know what that is referring to. Do you have any ideas of what that could be referring to?
No, I do not.
I'm going to throw a shot in the dark out there. No?
No.
Don't peek at my computer screen there, Edwin. Okay, so as Edwin has seen, I've spoiled it for him, but it is a Franz Kafka quote, again another highbrow literary quote, saying, "I am a cage in search of a bird." According to Cora, I'm not gonna delve deep into too much. I am a cage in search of a bird means generally refers to a person who is in search of someone special, someone who can fill his or her life with love and make him or her feel special. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah, who needs to be completed.
Right, exactly. Right, yeah. And I think that's where George gives that divine twin quote, right? So,
good
in
connection.
keeping with that theme. But we'll get to that when we get there. This episode is directed by Jake Schreier. The last 3 out of 4 episodes are going to be directed by him. I believe he directed the majority of the episodes as well as Hikari. So, written by Lee Sung-jin and Kevin Rosen. And major time jump in the beginning of this episode. 8 months later. So what happened in the last... so Isaac... Danny calls the anonymous hotline and rats out Isaac for the road rage incident after, the deal with Amy falling apart, right?
And then the basketball scene.
Yeah. So basically, like, Danny becomes the alpha, right? He takes over the show business. No more debt to cousin Isaac anymore. He expands with the ill-gotten gains of cousin Isaac from the Kelly Clarkson rice cookers, and he takes over Prey's team.
Yes.
Usurping Edwin, poor Edwin, and pretty much becomes head honcho. He's the man right now.
Yeah.
And he gets Esther.
Yes.
Which is another, just like she's a non-character to me, but is just representative of like that power. Struggle. He's in charge now. So yeah, that's where we are here 8 months later, and we get a nice rendition of Amazing Grace, like the punk version or like the soft version at first, and then it, what do you call it, explodes into that crescendos into that
high energy.
Yeah, so cool.
This episode is where people would like life to be at, for most of this episode, things are going well for Danny, things are going well for Amy, and if it just ended, 2/3 the way through the episode, great, everyone, it would be happily ever after. So yeah, Amazing Grace, lyrically about redemption, and Danny, as you see in this opening scene, he is redeemed in a way. He's living a good life, and they show where he's being a good leader. He's teaching a kid guitar, and he's telling Paul, giving him like words of wisdom of not like reveling in Veronica and Edwin's marital problems. And so he seems like he's evolved, and everything's good. So.
Yeah, this is basically him on top of the world. Like, Paul's even looking up to him. He's in the crowd, like, looking really impressed by him. Of course, you got Edwin. Edwin with the baby, just watching with contempt.
Poor Edwin.
And he's like, he took my spot. That used to be me, right? And even Veronica's like into it, and you can tell just the utter resentment of the look on Edwin's face. Before that, of course, while they're singing, it was like a singing voiceover to Amy and George in a pool in some kind of different housing arrangement, which later we will get after the scene with you mentioned with Danny teaching the kid when you go to E to C sharp minor that you really feel the Holy Spirit there, and yeah, again I love that scene where he's just like you see Edwin and Veronica fighting. And
Dang, Keanu, dodged hella bullets.
Paul, that's not how we react to a brother and sister going through a tough time. We pray for them, right, guys?
so politically correct, he has to put that kind of leader front in front of people, right? In front of like.
And I think it begs the question: is he being genuine there? Because he has, maybe gotten to a better place in his own life, or is he just, BSing?
Definitely, I think he's BSing because we already know the darker side of him, right? Of course, we get that motif of the ground. I forgot what it was about, and then I thought hard about it. I'm not going to reveal what it is, but it's an interesting visual motif because we come back to it several times, if not,
right,
a few times in this episode.
And
at least.
we'll, definitely talk about when it comes up later.
Yeah. But when I saw it the first time, I just kept thinking, I knew it was important somehow, and I thought it was something like sinister, like a body he buried, or like a secret he buried, or something to that effect,
Yeah, and it's interesting how it's hard to make out what it actually is, because it's it's not very well lit, and it's hard to see, and you're like, what is that? Is that it looks like the ground of some, but like what's in it?
Could be like Amy's garden for like her Koyo house thing, or it could be anything, right? So at that point, all right. So we after that scene at Living Glory, we get. By the way, like when Paul says, "Oh, you dodged a bullet there," that was pretty hilarious. That's when Danny retorts, we don't talk bad about a brother like that, right? So Amy, back at Amy and George's vacation home, she's like really upset with the nanny or the caregiver or whatever.
I think we should stop having Betty come out to the vacation home.
Did she do something wrong?
I didn't take it as her being upset, but I think she is just so used to having to do a lot and be the busy one and the one to do all the heavy lifting that she doesn't know what to do with herself, just living the pampered life, and she I think feels bad that she could easily be doing all these things, but she's having someone else do it for her. So
it's like what people like retired people call like a phantom limb, because like they're used to being so busy all the time, and then when they have the whole day with nothing to do, there's like they feel useless. So I feel like that's what she's going through right now. That's a good point. I wasn't really paying too deep attention because I was writing notes, so thank you for bringing that up.
But it's funny, everyone asks her like, what does she do wrong, just assuming, but she doesn't mean that. But I think George has always lived a privileged life, so he doesn't relate. And then the housekeeper, the nanny, that's her job, so she just expects that whoever hires her just would make her do everything.
I also feel like she has a very particular like way of doing things. Like, I need my napkin, or sorry, my towels folded this way and that way. She's very what do you call that, like anal about stuff like that.
Particular.
Very, sorry, you know what I meant.
The
other version of it. Back at Danny's big nice apartment here, got some good living here, right?
Well, that's his parents' house.
The
house he made for.
That's the parents' house that he built. Okay. And then
so he's showing it off.
With his parents back
and
in
he's
Korea.
So proud.
And playing the Kelly Clarkson song, like, we already have a rice cooker. It's like, and then I thought that was a really nice giveaway because you could tell if you that's a plot point in one of the early episodes that Isaac said he keeps his money in the Kelly Clarkson ones, and the Ode to Joy ones are the ones that are the ones that
Or regular rice
yeah,
cookers.
regular rice cookers that he gives away or sells. So yeah, you could. I mean, it's very subtle. You have to kind of piece it together, but
But
I think basically he took the money.
yeah. I think that's what we're led to believe, because where's the money coming
Right,
from
yeah.
to buy the land? And,
We'll get into how it's not a successful business later. But sorry, you're gonna.
But yeah, I thought it was funny that the dad says that the rice cooker song was weird and the vase was weird.
Right, yeah.
I think my parents, they're of a certain generation that would probably say the same thing too. Like
Right.
a lot of music that I enjoyed, listening to, as a teenager, they would say, "Oh, this sounds weird," or
Exactly.
what is?
Also, you mentioned the art piece. That is the one that Bobby took
Yeah.
from the
George's
home
house.
invasion gone wrong. Yeah, at Fumi's when they were shot at by Fumi, and Fumi fell down the stairs and apparently survived the fall. But yeah, he still kept that's evidence, buddy. Like, how stupid are you? Like the rice cookers now, and then the art piece. Like, come on. Like, oh yeah, and also a good foreshadowing in that scene. Danny said he did all the wiring, which is gonna come back later. Meanwhile, George and Amy are in bed. Apparently, it's vanilla. No, George confesses his emotional entanglement. with Jada.
Before we get into that, there was a scene where Danny sees that someone's ordering
the magazines.
unwanted magazine
yeah.
subscriptions, and then there's a suspicious rustling
of the bushes
in a nearby bush.
Yeah.
And
Did you think somebody was in there?
I think, the first time I was watching it, I probably suspected, oh, is that Amy? But, looking back, it's like they're both in good places, and they probably aren't even really thinking about the beef because life is going so well. So seeing it a second time, I'm like, I thought it would have been Amy just because of the beef they've been having, but it seemed less likely that it would be Amy.
No, that's a good point. It's an unmotivated camera movement. Usually a camera stays fixed on a character, but then this one, like, Danny goes off screen and then it just suddenly moves towards this bush.
Yeah.
And I also think that is foreshadowing, like, that motif that we've been seeing. It's like, could it be something in those,
Okay.
Going on, a conspiracy in the bushes? Did he hide something in there, kind of thing? So I guess it's meant to kind of keep us guessing, kind of thing. So good call. George confesses his emotional entanglement.
I thought
the Jada Pinkett words.
Yeah, I thought this particular scene had a lot of funny lines.
Yeah.
Because it does reference Jada and Will, and then who was it? Amy says, "Oh, do you work for Goop now?" or something.
Is that what? Oh, is that where the show came from?
Well, I don't. Well, I know Jada and Will had their thing, but Gwyneth Paltrow, when she broke up with Chris Martin, it was called like an intentional.
Jeez.
There was another kind of funny wordplay. It was like an intention.
Disentanglement or
something like that. I'll have to look at it.
Discombobulation? I don't know. So this is where he mentions the divine twin.
Have you ever heard of a divine twin?
No, George. I have never heard of a divine fucking twin. This isn't Dungeons and Dragons. You don't have to make up lore.
It's not lore.
But a lot of great stuff here. It's the theme of this episode. I think one of the major sub-themes of this episode is infidelity from both partners. George, of course, with his new age wisdom, confesses. He feels it weighing heavily on him and needs to get it off his chest. That's why he couldn't perform during intercourse. And of course, Amy has a secret she's covering up as well, but this is would have been a perfect opportunity for her to lay it all on the table as well, but it doesn't even come to her mind.
Yeah.
She's like just laying kind of a guilt trip on him.
Yeah, Amy's definitely being a hypocrite there.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
sorry, that
No, yeah.
that term that Gwyneth,
Oh.
it was conscious uncoupling.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was
Okay. These freaking celebrities and their new age terms. So yeah, the scene ends with they're gonna set up another appointment with Dr. Lin. Back at the Chobros office, which they're just hanging out at. Apparently, Bobby and Michael are still there. This is a live workspace, and Danny's actually doing some work. What kind of work is he doing at night? I guess analytics, or I don't know.
maybe bookkeeping.
Scheduling. Yeah, okay. You got all his rice cookers in the back, of course, all the ones that he appropriated, quote unquote, from cousin Isaac there.
Dude, it's the law of diminishing returns. We can relax.
Yeah, Danny, it's the law.
It's the law.
No, you don't understand, okay? This could all go away. All right? Construction is a crazy business.
Danny's just keeping up appearances, saying that the construction is a crazy business. And here's where our boy Edwin comes in. He's trying to get a job, implying that
They're up
he
to
could do-
something
yeah,
shady.
he could get his hands dirty.
So this made me wonder, is it because he really needs the work because, again, they have a baby and, babies require a lot of money to raise, or if he's trying to bust them doing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about that,
Illegal.
but that's probably, the latter is probably correct. He's probably trying to gain a bit of leverage, and this is another sub beef. We got the main beef with Amy and Danny. Now, of course, we got a sub beef with Edwin and Danny, but Danny doesn't realize it. He just thinks that this guy is kind of pathetic now. Maybe he just wants some work. But yeah, he's not quite as sharp as seeing a potential conflict there, because looks like Edwin, you're right, it looks like Edwin could be, fishing for some, content to blackmail with, or at the very least, turn him in, so he can be the big fish again at Living Glory there. So good call, man. All right, Solo visit with Dr. Lin, and I don't have really much to say about this. She just seems like she's reconsidering George as a soulmate. She's kind of questioning, their compatibility, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and I think it brings out more of Amy's psychological makeup.
Yeah.
The therapist does a good job of focusing it on Amy rather than Amy deflecting it about other people.
Yeah.
So Amy, you could tell she has a low image of herself when she talked about having a baby that, she was hoping it would have all of the, great qualities of George, but she, in her words, just the salvageable parts of me. So she's like, at best, I have just so things to give to a child. And so she doesn't think very much of herself. And then the therapist sensed that Amy isn't fully being open, as Amy tends to be. And then Amy brings up this idea of unconditional love. And I really liked Ali Wong's performance. She did a good job of uncomfortably contorting her face as she's trying to get these uncomfortable words out and feelings out.
And it's cool because it does set up, her parents again. She's like, do you feel like your parents have anything to do with that? And she says, I know my parents love me. They showed it through silence, kind of thing. and we'll get into more of that I think in the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good introduction to that kind of theme of her like that kind of trauma passed down, and how she kind of inherited this kind of silent. I relate to that too because like it's that that really bad habit of not resolving conflict, just kind of bottling it up and then moving on past it without resolving it. It's just going to be in the back of your mind and in your DNA for the whole time. If you're George, it's unresolved conflict is terrible for your aura kind of thing. So speaking of George, we get to the. Did you have anything else to say about that scene or?
With the therapist?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Zane and George apparently are still meeting up and hanging out.
And they both genuinely seem to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, I think Danny at first was just trying to get an angle to infiltrate Amy's life. But I think Danny really enjoys the time spending with George, and George does too. And
Right.
so,
Yeah, it's weird because the titular beef is at another kind of stalemate right now. It's in another Cold War Part 2 of it. Amy has ceased contact with Paul through, circumstantial conflict or whatever situations. Danny really has no reason to keep communicating with George, but he, like you said, like he probably really connects with him. Or maybe, it's like he's like hedging his bets. Like he's like keeping it on the back burner. Like, oh, maybe if she comes at me, I still have this in my back pocket, kind of thing. So he's like thinking in the long term, because they didn't really resolve it. I mean, it's he has a scapegoat for the road rage incident, but there's still it hasn't really resolved.
Right. I think we've talked about how every character has some emotional need that goes unfulfilled, and I think George and Danny befriend each other because the other person does fulfill some of those social and emotional
and it's weird
needs.
Sorry to cut you off, but Amy had that in Paul and she doesn't have that anymore. That's why she needs to go back to the therapist, right? I don't think she relates terribly deeply to Naomi, so and Jordan, the Jordan deal, by the way, that was just kind of combed over in the opening scenes of the episode, but the deal was done. They mentioned that that's why she has so much time now, and even George says the Tamago chair helped with the deal. So again, that's a huge kind of important part of the plot for that whole Jordan deal, right? During that Zane and George lunch, George propositions Danny to come to his little gathering, his art thing that he's having. And he says, "You should meet my wife." And we're supposed to be like, oh, it's gonna hit the head there. The worlds are colliding, right? So, which apparently that happens when Amy sees Danny in the crowd there, as Fumi is given kind of little pep talk speech for George's work there. And we get Danny talking to Jordan and Naomi, who are engaged at this point.
We know how it sounds. Sister-in-law turned fiance.
My brother is pissed, but this was meant to be.
Jurassic Park. Life finds a way.
Danny comes to the party to end the beef.
Yeah. Okay.
Up to this point, this episode's gone on to show that they're both in good times in their life, and so I think Danny came with that intention.
You're right. Good point. Like his "life finds a way" Jurassic Park quote there. Apparently, obviously, he's just trying to find something to keep. I hate that when you're at a party and you're just trying to find something to say to keep it going. You don't really have anything in common with these people. You're just trying to, humor them or humor yourself, so to speak. And then here's where he meets, quote unquote, Amy for the first time. He's like, I feel like I met you before or something. Did he say something like that, or I forgot him?
I think before that line, didn't Danny say something funny, like about using the bathroom? Like he
says that.
Excuse.
Yeah.
He wants to excuse himself from
Yeah.
I don't know, talking to George. He's like,
They hug, and he says, I feel like I already know you.
Yeah.
I want you to meet my wife, Amy.
Oh, hey,
Hi.
come on, bring it in. I feel like I already know you.
Yeah, they talk, they kind of shoot the shit, and kind of one-upping each other still.
I think they have a genuine conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any venom in it.
Well, I think at first Amy's definitely very reluctant. She's like, she puts her guard up. Like, what are you doing here? Like, yeah, she's very reticent, very defensive, and Danny's just like, calm down. He's actually asked her like, here, quote. He says, I just want to know if, quote, you're like, I don't know, happy and shit.
I just want to know if you're like, I don't know, happy and shit.
Yeah. What's that quote from Mad Men? What is happiness? It's the feeling you get before you want more happiness. It's like you can never feel fulfilled, right? Once you get what you want, you're always gonna have. It's like life comes in. It's like a roller coaster, right? You're always gonna have ups and downs, and then of course he has a huge up, but he's down now. He's feeling unfulfilled. He's feeling depressed. So it's funny how he goes to her and asks if she's happy, which is crazy, right?
Right, and I think he's aspiring for a similar, good life that he sees with Amy and George, but then Amy gives him a very sobering, I don't know, maybe even bleak statement of like, all of this is, gonna fade and like...
Yeah, nothing lasts.
Yeah, this is all temporary and
then she mentions Ouroboros, which is the snake eating its own tail, or Ouroboros. I think it's Ouroboros. I think that's the correct pronunciation.
So yeah, it's like
leaves him kind of confounded when she says that.
Right.
He just says word. I don't think he understands what that means actually. So, and then she's just like, just leave, please. And there you go. Beef not ended because.
Well, I think the beef could have ended there, but what happens next,
right? Yeah, with
is just like the craziness of life, or life's coincidences. Like if this thing that happens next didn't happen,
right,
could have been the end of the story, and everything was just good, fine and dandy. But no. Of course, they're trying to tell a story with ups and downs and conflict and drama. And, Amy bends down to clean up something, and Danny sees a tattoo on Amy's back, and he recognizes that tattoo and puts two and two together.
He calls her Kayla, and she turns around.
Right, and it's just like, man... What if that didn't happen?
Yeah.
It's just like...
It's the multiverse, man. In another universe, it already ended, so...
And,
they never even met each other.
The whole story, even the initial beef, it's like if they weren't in that particular time and place in the Foresters parking lot, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
What is this, huh? Some kind of warning shot? You trying to blackmail me?
I don't want anything from you, okay? I don't want anything to do with you. You are sick. You're a disease.
Okay, so you think you're better than me now, huh? Is that it? Is that why you let your cousin go to jail? Yeah, I heard about an anonymous tip. I wonder who. I could end you, Daniel. And things are going so well for you with your little business.
Lisa didn't cheat with the fucking child.
And then, it brings up, that another theme that we're going to get to later, that how he kind of infantilizes Paul. If it wasn't for Danny, he'd be out on his own, as we'll learn later. We'll get into more of that later. But, it brings up a lot of issues that still will yet to cross. So I like like a great way that you put it. We think it's ending. The logical conclusion would have been to end, but of course it escalates some more, and then we got some more story to tell, and it's not over. So next scene, Amy and George. She proposes that they move.
Yeah, in this scene, it seems like Amy's ready to confess something.
Yeah.
But it ends up just her suggesting moving.
Right.
And again, it shows Amy's way of dealing with problems. Instead of dealing with things and addressing them, she just wants to wipe the slate clean and move on or ignore them.
Yeah, she just runs. That's it's in her DNA. That's probably what her parents did, what her mom did, probably. So, I wrote here that later in the scene, of course, she forgives him for cheating on her with Mia, but it seems like she didn't really do that. She didn't really process it. She's just doing it to balance out her guilt for cheating with Paul, and that's really unhealthy because we know leaving things unresolved like that, especially issues of infidelity, is going to come back and bite you in the ass, which it will later. So anything else to say from the scene, or
no?
Okay. Yeah, it sucks for George, but hey. Back at the Cho Bros offices, Paul is finding a lot of accounting errors in the invoices. He's saying that Edwin got in his head, and Danny lays it all on the ground. This is a great episode for both of them, kind of, well, Danny at least and George, but laying it all out on the table, right? Like, he tells her about how Kayla is Amy, and she was just trying to use Paul to get to Danny, and then pretty much poisons him against Amy with lies, like distorted facts, saying she called you a child when really she's saying he's a child with you, so it's very much like how like a divorced parent would say, oh, your dad's a bad person,
yeah,
blah blah blah. It's like pretty much like how they poisoned you against the other parent. It's pretty much what he's doing here. It's pretty fucked up.
That's what makes his statement that he went there to end the beef, it makes you wonder if he's being genuine.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like it could have gone that way.
Yeah, he was there originally intentionally for that. Yeah.
But again, when he's distorting the facts to Paul, it brings his integrity into question.
Yeah. And great acting by Paul Mazzino. He was just like really like holding in all that hurt, because you could tell the Amy thing really affected him. He's not over it, and then like when he tells her all this hurtful stuff that he supposedly said about him, it's all like in his face. He's just trying to hide it. Really, really well done there. Paul tells George about the affair. Oh yeah, right, yeah. Paul just goes up to the house, right, and then Amy sees it on the Ring app. So worlds are colliding. It's all blowing up, right? That's crazy. Again, if she would have laid it out on the table, she could have avoided that.
Right.
So we're coming up to the end of the episode here. Danny and Paul's parents are at the airport. They're really proud of him, and I like that look on his face. It's like he can't just take the win. He's just like kind of like, I don't know. He can't believe it, or he's like, what would you call that kind of face? Like disbelief. Like they hug him and say, "We're very proud of you." And he's not really. I guess he's happy, but maybe he can't believe it.
Yeah, and it seems like I think he's overcome by genuine emotion.
Okay. Yeah, Amy of course returns back to her house, and George has taken Junie, as one would do, and it's terrible for her because you can tell how much Junie means to her. She even said so, in the therapy session.
And Amy's reaping the consequences of what she's done. And I think Amy earlier told Danny, you know, that actions have consequences
Yeah.
or something to
Okay.
that effect. And so it's coming around,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
to get her.
Yeah, she's breaking down in her SUV there. Nice match cut to Danny also in the car smiling. You know, the juxtaposition of moods there. And then of course the smile fades when he gets closer to the house. Zoom out to Paul as well in shock, seeing the aftermath of the fire of the house that he built his parents. And Amy's okay. I'll talk about this in our overall thoughts, but yeah, Amy's eating the chicken sandwich at Burger King that Paul told her about that Danny does, looking hella sad there, and then cut to that weird ambiguous ground thing again. So yeah, very ambiguous, but
there's a
very nice
lot
way to end it.
going on in those last several minutes. So the whole chicken sandwich thing, I think it's the writers again hitting on this point of people have more in common with their enemies than they think, that they're fighting similar things, but they're taking it out on each other, infighting, or however you want to put it. And then when Amy sees the same image that Danny's been seeing again, they're similar. They have these things that relate to both of them, that afflict both of them.
So you interpreted it as them both seeing that, huh?
Yeah.
It's almost like a vision.
Yeah, because that thing came up earlier after you can kind of see Danny like looking into space, and then at the end of the episode, it's not after they showed Danny, it's after they showed Amy.
Amy,
So I took it as Amy seeing that same thing.
Interesting. I just thought it was like a device, just like a flash forward device to get us to think that they're both in on some kind of conspiracy. Like maybe they both die, and that's where they're gonna go, or either that, or they killed somebody, and they're both responsible for whoever's put in the ground. That's the obvious where one's mind would go when they see like a ground covered up, So that's what I thought. Interesting too. We have different interpretations of that. That's
and cool. The whole house on fire thing, I think the first time I saw it, my mind immediately thought, oh, that's Amy getting real bad revenge on Danny. But then when I was thinking about it, although Paul will maybe explain or address it in the next episode, I was like, it can't be Amy, because how would she know about the house? It's not like,
Sure.
But then we find out.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But yeah.
Also, the vocabulary of the editing, of the video editing.
Yeah.
We see the house burn, and then we cut to her
crying,
eating,
and
watching. So it's like she's obviously did that.
Yeah.
Like when you see like cross-cutting like that, and like for instance, I don't know, off the top of my head, while I was watching Dunkirk, or I was watching a review of Dunkirk, and they were saying how you've seen Dunkirk, right?
Yeah. Yes.
There's like 3 different timelines between like the air, the Navy, and then the ground.
Yeah.
But then it's all edited seamlessly together under the same score. So it's very tricky. It feels like it's all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But they're all happening at different moments in time.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I was going to say about that. But I'm just saying the
but
vocabulary
the editing implied that it was Amy.
Yes.
And that's that's what would make sense in how the story's been told. It's just the next step in this beef.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's been escalating.
Yeah.
And then that's you're right, the next logical step it would go, because she has had her family taken away from her.
Right.
So you would think she would do something super extreme like that. So it sounds like we both really love this episode, but let me hear what your Yelp rating is and your overall thoughts. Edwin, excuse me.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
4 stars. Yeah, it was just a pivotal episode in the sense that the ending is a huge turning point. Yeah, like for most of the episode, everything's just going swell, and then the pivot at the end I thought was important. Yeah, there's funny moments. I enjoyed the bits of humor.
Very cool. Let me before I give you my Yelp rating, what have you given 5 out of 5 so far? Did you give the pilot a 5, right? Can you remember?
It was either 4.5. It might have been 4.5. I don't remember.
I can't remember what I think I gave the first one 5 or maybe not. I know I gave 5 out of 5 to maybe the 4th episode, one of the middle episodes. But let me give you my Yelp rating. It is a full 5 out of 5 stars.
Ooh, nice.
I feel like, as a writer, many of you know, many of you may not know that I went to school for screenwriting, so I'm a huge fan of structure. In a typical movie, you have 3 acts, right? And in between those acts, you have plot points. So at the end of Act 1, you have a major plot point, something that twists the plot around to the movie into another direction, so it feels like a different movie. And then you have a final plot point, which spins it into the final act, makes it even. It's like the craziest twist, the craziest events of that will make it spin off into the last act of the movie. This to me feels like if a series or a season has 3 acts, which usually, if there are good writers, it does. This feels like the final plot point, and it will go into the last act of the season, or in this case, maybe the series. So I feel like there are a lot of major plot twists that spin the events of the series in a whole new direction. You know, the beef has started again. This beef has amped up again. George leaving Amy with Junie, finding out about Paul, huge plot point. The house burning, huge plot point. Thinking that it's Amy, huge fucking plot point. And we're gonna deal with that. You know, that's what great writing is all about. And I love how they set it up. Like you said, it felt really like organic, and it felt like, oh, things are so swell and hunky dory, and then boom, like it's not. I love that, and I love how.
And yeah, again, like how it hinged on just something coincidental, like him seeing that tattoo. It could have easily not happened, and most likely wouldn't have happened, and none of this would have happened.
Right. And on top of that, like all the nice subtle setup of themes of the infidelity and of Amy's parents, you know, all those things, and then the visual motif of that thing, of the ground, you know, a lot of setup for what are going to be the final episodes of this season / series. So with that, sounds like we both really loved it. Looking forward to episode 8, the drama of original choice. Anything else you want to say about this episode before we close out the episode, Edwin?
No, I think we said enough.
All right. Looking forward to talking with you about the next episode. Thank you again for joining me, Edwin.
All right. Till next time.
All right, guys. Before that, you can find more episodes on thelaserboy.wordpress.com. Type us up on YouTube at The Laser Boy. And we will see you for episode 8, the drama of original choice. See you guys next time.
Bye.